Let's quickly go over some rules related to inequalities. If A is less than B, A is a number, B is a number, and if A is less than B, then if you add a number on both sides, the inequality, the sign of the inequality does not change. So it's still going to be less than. So A is less than B, A plus K is less than B plus K. So adding a constant on both sides does not make a difference in the direction of the inequality. If you subtract, you're subtracting a constant, it's the same as adding a constant, nothing changes. At least the direction of the inequality does not change. If A is less than B, then A minus K is less than B minus K. The exact same thing happens when you multiply both sides. Let's say we have A less than B, then K times A is less than K times B as long as K is a positive number. The direction of the inequality does not change. Same thing with division. So number 4, A is less than B, then A divided by K is less than B divided by K as long as K is a positive number. The only time that the inequality gets flipped is in these two cases, and I'm going to add one more. If A is less than B and you multiply a negative number on both sides, let's say negative 2A, negative 2B, we've multiplied both sides with a negative number 2, then the direction of the inequality flips. It becomes the opposite. Notice this. It changes the direction of the inequality. But when does that happen? When K is a negative number. Same thing with division. If we are dividing both sides by a negative number, the direction of the inequality gets flipped. So we have A greater than B, A divided by K is less than B divided by K. So the direction of the inequality changes when you're multiplying or dividing by negative numbers. Now I'm going to show you another example. 3 is less than 5. Okay. Now let's say we take the reciprocal on both sides. 1 over 3 and 1 over 5. 1 out of 3 parts of the whole is definitely greater than 1 over 5 parts of the whole. So remember, this is another time that the direction of the inequality changes. So we have A less than B, then 1 over A. If we are allowed to take the reciprocal, which means one of them is not equal to 0, then we have 1 over A is greater than 1 over B. So there are many such examples that we'll go over a little later, but let's do a few problems similar to the ones on your homework assignments and chapter tests. So let's look at this inequality. It's just like solving a linear equation. Okay, remember we have to solve for m. So we keep m on one side, any term containing m on one side, which means we're going to leave this alone for now. And we're going to get rid of the positive 2. And the only way to do that is by subtracting negative, that's a half, sorry, positive half. By subtracting half on both sides of the inequality. So positive half, negative half cancel each other out, and that becomes a 0. 0 minus m over 4 is negative m over 4 is greater than, and now we have 3/8 minus half. And the common denominator is 8. So you multiply by 4 and divide by 4. So get the common denominator. Remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do the exact same thing to the numerator. So you have m over 4 is greater than 3/8 minus 4 over 8. Negative m over 4 is greater than negative 3 minus 4 is negative 1 over the common denominator 8. So this is the same as 3 minus 4 over 8. And that's how I get the negative 1 over 1/8. So now we need to get rid of the 4 in the denominator and also the negative sign. So now I need to multiply both sides with a negative number. If I multiply with a 4, the 4 in the denominator gets cancelled. And then if I multiply with a negative 4, the negative times the negative becomes a positive. So that's why I'm multiplying with a negative 4. I want to get rid of the negative sign and also cancel the 4. So let me just show you this. Negative m over 4, remember, is the same as negative 1/4 times m, as long as the 4 is in the denominator. So you basically, it's the same as negative 1 over 4 times m. And how do you get rid of the negative 1 over 4? You take the reciprocal. Okay, so you flip the fraction and it becomes 4 over 1. And that's what you multiply with to get rid of the constant, which is negative 1/4. So remember that this is a 4 over 1, and the only way to cancel the 4 is to have the 4 in the numerator. The negative and the negative make it a positive, right? So it becomes an m. Now we have to do the exact same thing on the right side. So negative 1/8 times negative 4. So the negative and the negative becomes a positive. 4 goes 2 times, and that becomes a half. You can use your calculator if you want to, or you can do it by hand. But what's the most important thing here? What's the rule that we need to apply? Remember that if we multiply both sides, we're looking at rule number 5. If we multiply both sides with a negative number, so we have a less than b, multiply both sides with a negative number, what happens is the direction of the inequality flips in the opposite direction. That is the most important thing if you're multiplying both sides by a negative number. So what do we have now? We have m is not greater than but less than half. What does this really mean? Let's look at the number line. If you have to graph this on the number line is this. Half is to the right of 0. So let's say this is a half. Everything to the left of half is counted. Everything, which means it goes to negative infinity. But remember, there is a whole here. You're not including the half. So let's say this is a half. You're not including the half. There's a whole at that point, half, right? Now, if I wanted to include, then the inequality would have to be m less than or equal to half. If it says less than or equal to, then you include the half. So in this case, we do not include the half. There's a whole and everything to the left, everything that's in purple. And this arrow says it goes on and on forever. So this is the same as the interval negative infinity, comma, positive half, not including the half. If I had to include the half, it would look like this. If this were the case, there would be a square bracket. Okay, and this. Now let's quickly look at this other equation. Again, we have to solve the inequality, and x is the term that we're going to leave alone for now. I need to get rid of the negative 1/6, and the only way to do that would be to add a 1/6 on both sides. So 1/3 plus 1/6 on the left, and remember, adding a number on both sides. Remember, we are adding this negative 1/6 plus 1/6. Adding a number on both sides or subtracting a number on both sides does not change the direction of the inequality. So that becomes a 0. That was the whole point. Now we need to take a common denominator. 3 and 6 are the denominators. The LCM is 6. And the way to get a 6 in the denominator is to multiply the 3 with 2. Multiply the numerator with 2 as well. Plus 1/6 is greater than, remember this becomes 0. Negative 1/6 plus 1/6 becomes 0, and you're left with negative 4/9 x. So this is 2/3, 2/6. This is 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. So that's 2/6 plus 1/6 is greater than negative 4/9 x. Let me put a line here so we don't mix this up. Okay, so 2 plus 1, add the numerators, leave the common denominator, is greater than negative 4/9 x. Now remember, we have to get rid of negative 4/9. So how do you get rid of negative 4/9? Remember, 3 over 6 is nothing but a half. And the way to get rid of the negative 4/9 is by multiplying both sides with the reciprocal. Negative 4/9, the reciprocal of negative 4/9 is negative 9/4 times negative 4/9 x. And then we do the exact same thing, negative 4/9. But what is the rule when we multiply both sides with a negative number? Remember that the inequality was greater than, but when we multiply both sides with a negative number, the inequality gets flipped. So now we have, this is a positive half times negative 4/9. The 2 goes 2 times. You can use your calculator to simplify this. Use your calculator function. So negative 2/9 is less than, the 9 and the 9 cancel, the 4 and the 4 cancel, the negative times the negative becomes positive, just as planned, and we get x less than, or rather x greater than. If you read it this way, it's x greater than negative 2/9. So if we had to graph it, this is what it would look like. That's a 0, arrows in both directions. Negative 2/9, you could put it somewhere here. I'm going to put a hole because there's no less than or equal to. So negative 2/9, let's say, is on the negative side of the number line. And then let me change the color. X is greater than, all numbers, if you read it in the opposite direction, greater than negative 2/9. So there's a hole here, but everything greater than negative 2/9 applies. Don't fill the hole because negative 2/9 is not included. So if you had to put this in the interval form, it would look like negative 2/9. This is not including. This parentheses says do not include negative 2/9, comma, and everything to the right. When I say everything, it goes on to positive infinity.